Yes, of course, yes. Oh, definitely yes. People care more about a hype-filled announcement than the game itself, which you will see clearly when it comes to many online showcases for game announcements and how people treat them. Now, a good game reveal can get people's attention and even make people who weren't interested in a franchise turn their head towards it entirely because of the attention a reveal can get. I mean, there's many game trailers and reveals that people will fully remember as kind of why people liked E3. That's where the big stuff got shown off, the big surprises, but it's also where people try to get games that they kind of expect to see, especially nowadays when it comes to stuff like Nintendo Directs, Xbox showcases, or PlayStation State of Play. People look at these showcases that are meant to just show you games and now rate them solely based on, was the thing I wanted to see there or not. I never understood the idea of rating a Nintendo Direct or anything like that, because so long as it did its job showing you games, it did its job. Unless there are technical errors, which at least the Switch 2 reveal Direct did have, I don't see what's the point of rating them. People rate them based on how exciting is the announcement, but it's always the same kind of format, just showing you games, so there's nothing like a different kind of presentation. It's just whether or not you are wowed by the games themselves, which in that case means you're already judging the games based on reveal alone and deciding whether or not you even like it or not, which is also weird aspect when it comes to try and judge these shows, or when they get mad at a game that isn't revealed there at all and go, why wasn't it revealed, how dare you, or anything. Even if something else that was interesting was shown, they don't care because they had their mindset to a particular thing showing up. Go-to example is gonna be the ports of Personas 3, 4, and 5, because at that time, people were very much showing their demand for it, which, good for them, to the people who were being not assholes about it. So people kept expecting Personas 3, 4, and 5 to happen, and then we got a Nintendo Partners Direct one summer, I think it was summer, can't remember the season, but one part Direct, and instead of getting Persona, we instead got an announcement for an HD remaster of Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, and a teaser for Shin Megami Tensei 5, which was basically highlighting that the next time we would see it would be at around E3 time or something like that. So that was there to add excitement, and was definitely excited for like SMT fans, like myself. The Persona fans' response was to bitch endlessly that Persona was not there, and that how dare they instead show off Shin Megami Tensei there instead. And people just lost their effing minds over it. And there are videos I'll put in the description that pretty much collected people's response and anger towards it. Even people saying that Direct could have been quote-unquote just an email and nothing else, which is crazy for me to think that people think that any Direct that's trying to show you games could quote-unquote just be an email, just because it wasn't anything super surprising, once again, what they expected. In this case, they put the Persona, and so they got shown up Shin Megami Tensei. Another thing is when certain games have their announcements just casually thrown out there on social media. I believe for games like Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, Xenoblade Chronicle X Definitive Edition, and also Bayonetta 3. Where Bayonetta 3 got its release date trailer just casually thrown up on the social media channels for Nintendo, and there were people actually mad about that, saying it quote-unquote should have been a Direct. You would think the announcement that Bayonetta had a release date, or other cases like the announcement of Xenoblade Chronicle X Definitive Edition, should have been the excitement. I was excited, freaking just the idea to casually announce that, it's like, that's freaking cool, surprising, and I am now hyped. Yet, people were focused on it didn't have the presentation, the pizzazz. And many, for example, Xenoblade 3, they focused on how it was shown as the last thing to Nintendo Direct, and it caught people off guard since they weren't expecting a sequel. But now that they got what they wanted, when people wanted a Definitive Edition version of Xenoblade X, they were mad it didn't have the presentation of a Direct, which, I remind you, a Direct's presentation is basically just a PowerPoint slide. So once again, I don't get what's the difference when it comes to how one was announced as opposed to the other. Another thing that also had its whole entire announcement campaign via social media was Emio the Smiley Man from Red Detective Club, where that game was initially teased with just a mysterious teaser being referred to as Emio as just a man with a bag on his head. And the speculation people came up with was insane, but it got people's attention. People were wondering, what could it be? What is this franchise? Well, not franchise, but new game for Nintendo. A week later, we found out it was new from a Detective Club game, and people's excitement immediately died on the spot, because apparently people expected it to be some kind of a horror game in the vein of Resident Evil, which, once again, that's fully on them. All of that teaser was a man with a creepy bag on his head, but people assumed it was that and then complained that Nintendo got them quote-unquote hyped up for nothing. And the Smiley Man is a fantastic mystery game, but people don't care because the idea that was in their head was a lot bigger than the actual reality of the game itself, with people feeling like Nintendo didn't need this campaign or to do this. But equally so, if this was a Nintendo Direct, so many people would just skip over and not pay any mind, which is what happened with the remakes of the first Detective Club game. So it's one of those things where this marketing strategy was smart, and could have been Nintendo Direct? Sure, but ironically, probably would have more chance to skip it if it was in one than the way they presented it, where it got people's attention. Once again, people cared more about the hype of what this game could be in their heads, and not the actual reality of what the game was. I mentioned Persona earlier, but Persona 3, 4, and 5 did eventually get shown off being an Xbox showcase, and then later PlayStation, and later Switch, everything, when they tried to give more pizzazz to their announcements, including having Teddy and Morgana involved for the Nintendo version, which is a cool way of doing that. No one really pays much about mind when it comes to Persona 5 was originally showcase, where it just had the teaser of the chairs saying you are a slave while emancipation. People really mentioned that trailer to meme on the fact that Atlus was way off with their projection of when Persona 5 would actually release. At all, period. So people kind of meme on it, but it's one of those things where it did have a big presentation. I believe it was attached to a massive stream that also revealed Persona Q1 and Persona 4 Dancing All Night. I believe also had technical errors where they forgot to show up to the Persona 5 trailer at first, but it did have this big bombastic kind of reveal, but it was a game that only really got going through word of mouth after it was revealed and came out, and the power of memes and stuff like that. So despite having the quote-unquote hype announcement people wanted, it wasn't what people wanted. And then you also have another case, which is Persona 5 Strikers and Persona 5 Royal, where I believe they were revealed very close together at concerts. It was concerts, and Strikers got revealed as a spin-off for Persona 5. People were actually mad that it got announced and existed and considered it a footnote because it was a game being made by Omega Force, and basically people just didn't care for it and its existence. Or, once again, the imagination, people thought the S in the P5S.jp actually stood for Persona 5 Switch. Why the hell would they call it Persona 5 Switch, you morons? But it's one of those things that people then got pretty mad about and rejected Persona 5 Strikers' existence up until the gameplay trailer where they got to see more what the game was on offer, and so it was an action RPG and not a Muso game. But people hated that game's existence, and I refuse to let y'all forget that fact because I was there. Y'all, people have a hatred of anything associated with Mega Force and looking Muso-esque, I swear. And now look at us when it comes to Persona and people anticipating a Persona 6 announcement any second, or when people were super amped up for Persona 4 Remake due to the trademark and the website domain being finally updated, and then they got the reveal on Xbox Showcase Persona 4 Revival. It was a small teaser just announcing, yeah, the game exists, and here kind of what it's going to look like. People lost their shit and got mad. Despite getting the hype reveal they wanted, they were super mad that it wasn't a more complete state or anything and looked as the game footage said, early in development. But people were mad because despite getting that reveal they wanted, the game they were looking for, it didn't have the sauce and pizzazz and presentation they wanted, despite being a showcase, which is also quite literally what they wanted. Another interesting case is when it came to the reveal of the Nintendo Switch 2. Because at that time, people were kind of expecting around the ballpark of when they would actually reveal the system. And because of that, all eyes were on Nintendo, and Nintendo took advantage of that by using their social media account to constantly promote more and more games, which is one of the pluses when it comes to them casually doing reveals for Emio the Smiling Man or Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, where because the eyeballs are already looking at them, because you are looking at them, they can now show you more games than you would actually be paying attention to because your eyes are trained squarely on them. It's also one of the benefits of Direct when it comes to stuff like the Indies Direct, where you just get to see a bunch of indie games because your eyes are drawn to the Direct format. And I know many people discount indie games important as Directs, but it does its job of getting games in front of you. And only to me the most hype sizzling thing ever. Like, come on people. Have we not had freaking experiences like Alien Cold Marines where people bought it because the trailer presentation looked so cool, only for it to pretty much not be what it was supposed to be in the slightest at all? Goddamn. Or something like Metaphor Fantasio, which got teased many years ago and then took many years to actually become a thing, and by that point it was different than what was initially teased because of how long it's been. It's one of those things where people buy into the hype of the reveal more than anything else, but only when it's games they really care for. Like the fact when picking up World of Final Fantasy, I always tell people, World of Final Fantasy was revealed literally right before Final Fantasy VII Remake. It was shown at E3, all eyes on it, and despite people loving things to be in a presentation, people didn't pay attention to it. Either because of the way it looked, the art style, many people don't like the Elliot designs, but also because of the game right next to it was fucking Final Fantasy VII Remake. So people just didn't look at it whatsoever and focused solely on that. Actually, not solely on that, people also focused on Shenmue 3 as well. That also got the announcement of the Kickstarter campaign. That wasn't even an actual game yet, that was just a goddamn pitch and people paid more attention to it than what a Final Fantasy. Why do y'all do this to me? Remember Final Fantasy 15, which people kept focusing on the trailers and presentation, everything, only for the game to not be as good as it was set up because of how many different changes they made to the project and development, how it went through. But once again, we'll pay attention to those showcases to see more for the 15 and bought into the hype and excitement and cared more about what they envisioned in their head than the actual thing being shown to them or stuff being shown to them. Now you could say, I'm just a butthurt bitch and more eyes on World of Final Fantasy. To which I say, yeah I am. With the most recent Partner Direct happening, you can find so many people on social media upset that the final reveals for the Partner Direct were new HD 2D games. Specifically, The Adventure of Elliot, Octopath Traveler 0, which are big titles in their field, especially because the developers are so beloved, Team Asano. Yet so many people act as if Team Asano murdered their entire family and that HD2D is the devil. I hope you don't like Final Fantasy VI because that's where HD2D got style from. But it's one of those things where they ended it off on a big reveal, which yeah, none of y'all could predict that they'd be working on both a new IP as an action RPG or a new Octopath Traveler being a prequel, taking elements from the mobile game, Champions of the Continent, and yet people are pissed and act as if Nintendo done betrayed them because they put that direct. Even some people blaming Square Enix. Yeah, I've seen some people say that they would have accepted Square Enix being the final presentation if it were something like a new Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts. And it's like, once again, despite the fact that people care about the presentation, care about seeing new games, they didn't care about the game. They cared about I wanted it to be something that blew my mind, but specifically their mind. Because by many people having their minds blown with 2 new Team Asano games, because they didn't blow their mind in particular, they basically see it as, oh, that was a worthless direct everything. And one of those things where, once again, they care more about the hype and excitement, what they might see, over the actual reality of what they actually got. So they also see very common when it comes to like, let's say, Super Smash Brothers and the characters they reveal, where people typically want the character they care about to be in, and if it's not that character, then they can go to hell. Well, I'm like, hey, more the merrier. I like Smash Bros. So, you can put practically anyone in that goddamn game and I buy them. That's just what I want to ramble about, especially when so many people complain about not having any games to play and there's no games anymore, only for them to snub their nose at games because they didn't specifically possess them upon reveal, or the game does possess them, was a game they wanted, but it didn't possess them in the very specific way they wanted, and stuff like that. So we'll talk about that. People definitely care more about the hype reveal more than the game itself, where they'll difference freaking not care about an entire showcase because they didn't have the one title they were expecting, or they'll dismiss the game they were expecting because it didn't have the wow factor in its announcement. So this is what I'd go over with. Go out there, play games. I mean, there's plenty out there which had Target Direct, plenty of stuff to see out there. It might have THQ Nordic Showcase as well. Plenty of games out there everywhere you look. Alrighty then, good day.